Hi. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to our Workers Week virtual live stream. My name is David. I'm Regional Director with For Our Future. Really glad to be here. And of course, special shout out to Lior, who is our Digital Director behind the scenes, helping put this all together. We're here to represent a coalition of nonprofit organizations, community stakeholders, and elected officials who are hosting a week of action to uplift the voices of hardworking Floridians, drawing attention to Florida's failing policies and broken infrastructure and the devastating impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. So tonight we're going to hear from leaders in our community who have long history of championing workers' rights and fighting for Florida's families. With the devastating impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, especially in communities that have been historically underserved in our state and who continue to face tremendous challenges. So our advocacy efforts will demonstrate what the work looks like to change these dynamics and to foster a culture and governmental policies that support Florida's hardworking families. Really joined here together and want to thank our partner organizations who helped put this event together. Of course, For Our Future Florida here doing advocacy work throughout the state and in Florida. Also here with Nick and Common Ground Project, People Over Profits and Opportunity for All Floridians. Of course, really special thanks again, of course, to Common Ground for helping put this together. I'll turn it over to you, Nick.
Thanks, David. Hello, everybody. Really glad to be here with you all. My name is Nick Arndt, and I work with the Common Ground Project. And our main issue of focus is just finding common ground with, working Floridians and finding issues that everybody in the community can agree on, and just making sure that we are pushing our legislator and our elected officials to, pass progressive changes that will help workers, their families, and kind of level the playing field for the average Floridians out there. And I'm very excited to be here today with our panelists, and I'll be introducing them in just a second. And we're excited for you all to be here to get to hear from these great speakers. And the first person I'd like to introduce and give you a few minutes to kind of tell the group a little bit more about yourself is Representative Angie Nixon, who's joining us here in Jackson, represents the Jacksonville area, and is the representative for House District 14 in the Florida State House. So, Angie, go ahead and tell.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all, Common Ground, as well as For Our Future, for having me today. Super excited to join you. So my name is Angie Nixon. I am the state representative for Florida House District 14, which is located in Jacksonville, Florida, Duval County, home of the soon-to-be Super Bowl champions, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Just had to put that out there in the universe. I am a community organizer in addition to a union organizer. I currently work with SEIU FPSU, which is the Service Employees International Union, Florida Public Services Union, which is a local of SEIU. And I work with organizing. I work on organizing adjunct faculty and really building power in that space. I'm super excited to be here. Been working with groups like you all for over the past 10 years. I am a mother of 5. I went from 1 and now I have 5 with a recent marriage and blend. And just really happy to be here and happy to be working on passing bills and filing bills for working class families. So that's a little bit about myself. And again, super excited and happy to join you all today.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And the next person I'd like to introduce is Kofi Hunt, who's with the Center for Popular Democracy. Sorry, I had a little brain fart. Kofi is a good friend. He works in the St. Petersburg area and with groups across the state. And, very excited to have you here and to get to see you because it's been so long since I've seen you in person with the pandemic. But Without any further ado, Kofi, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and the work that Center for Popular Democracy is doing?
Yeah, hi, my name is Kofi Hunt. I am with the Center for Popular Democracy, working on the worker justice team on the Unemployed Action Campaign. I'm based out of St. Pete, Florida, but CPD is a nationwide organization. We're particularly working on federal unemployment reform, which the next economic package is going to be coming out. And we have a petition that we've circulated that is demanding that Congress make these broad-based reforms to create a federalized unemployment system that is fair and equitable, and workers have a voice in, and gets people the help they need and doesn't give them like false impediments when they're trying to survive.
Great. Well, we appreciate both of you being here. I can't begin to even describe in words, the work that you all have done and continue to do. So, for all our working families and, Floridians out there, we have a lot of respect for the work that you all do. And I'm so glad to have you here. We do have another speaker who's going to be joining us here in just a little bit. Her name is Maya Brown with Maya Brown with People Over Profits. And she'll be joining us a little bit. She's been traveling to Tallahassee today, but while we're waiting for her to join and to introduce herself, I did have some questions that I wanted to ask Representative Nixon and Kofi. And the first question I wanted to learn a little bit more about is just if you can tell us a little bit about your story, how the pandemic has been affecting either your constituents or the people in the communities that you work with. Just really curious, of what your experience has been, or what the experience of the people you represent has been in terms of dealing with the pandemic and some of the, issues that workers and their families are continuing to struggle with. So, Representative Nixon, if you want to, start us off there.
Yeah, definitely. So, of course, we are living in a pandemic and we are facing unprecedented times, and the community that I represent is predominantly Black African American, and so we are one of the hardest hit communities, simply because we are we are most at risk for contracting the virus, just based on the fact that we have limited access to quality health care in my district. We have a plethora of food deserts in my district. And that's one of the reasons that I decided to run, because I wanted to address those issues. Didn't necessarily know I was going to be addressing those issues in the middle of a pandemic, but here we are. And I've received countless emails and phone calls from folks who have lost their jobs, right? Who are unemployed, and they're facing a whack system that has broken down on them from top to bottom. So not only is the actual the actual system in which they try to claim their weeks for unemployment broken, but just the system in general. The mere fact that, previous Governor Scott and now U.S. Senator Rick Scott, he changed the weeks from 26 and dropped it to 12. And and folks have seen that it seems to have been by design, that the system is broken and trying to limit the amount of people who can in fact claim unemployment and get money, and just it was designed to make people frustrated and just to give up so that they wouldn't claim unemployment. And that's so unfortunate. And so I've been trying to push back on that recently. I'm not sure if you all may know, but there is a bill that's kind of fast tracking its way through the Florida House in regards to online sales taxes. Yes, it would be great if we do recoup online sales taxes that would level the playing field for a lot of small mom and pop shops that are here in the state of Florida. However, what they're going to do with those taxes is just absolutely absurd. So instead of using that $1 billion that would come in to address public services, they would rather just pay that into the unemployment trust fund so that businesses don't have to pay their fair share. Instead of businesses having to pay into that unemployment trust fund, they are paying for it. And so like I offered up 3 amendments last week, which would have changed the way in which we could allow folks to claim their unemployment benefits, because they can't necessarily claim that last quarter. And that's just based on archaic policies and snail mail and things like that. But then I offered even 2 more important amendments, which would have increased the amount from $275 to $400 a week. People said no. The party and the majority said no, that was on the committee. And then I even offered up an amendment to extend the weeks from 12 to 24. The national average is 26, and folks still voted that down. So as you see, unfortunately, the people that are in the majority here in the legislature, they don't really necessarily, they aren't passing policies that are beneficial to working class families. And so that's who I am. That's what I'm about, pushing back against the status quo, because, you know, I come from a working class family. I come from a union family, and I was elected from working class people. And so I'm up here in Tallahassee fighting for folks every single day in those regards.
We certainly need it. I know up in Tallahassee it's pretty hard to get things to get those passed that seem to be common sense. So we're glad that you're out there, you know, pushing hard and asking the hard questions, and you know, getting folks, you know, more in line with what we all know needs to happen. Kofi, did you want to go ahead and tell us, you know, just a little bit about you know, some of the work that you've done in your interactions with people, and how your community and the community around us is dealing with?
You're on mute.
Sorry. Thank you. Last year was devastating for a lot of working families across this country. I've talked to people who are still on unemployment because the jobs that they did disappeared. And I've talked to people who, like in Kansas, who since December, they haven't gotten any unemployment money because the system is just unable to keep up with the burden. And like Rep. Nixon spoke about here in Florida, you had the Republican governor had to admit that the website that was completely inept was made to be inept, even though they spent tens of millions of dollars on it. So when it comes to the idea of what's responsible, I think that we're kind of seeing that fiscally conservative doesn't cut it anymore. And what does answer are policies that work for working people. Collecting sales tax that people have paid to pay for products and then giving it as a tax break for corporations is not the intention of the people's money. It is the epitome of socializing debt and privatizing profits. That money is not going to necessarily directly translate to workers, and it should be used to support the workers who are still struggling, still trying to figure out their way in this new world. What we're proposing with CPD is a number of reforms, but Florida is unique in exemplifying why these are necessary. But we need to replace this inefficient system. The states have shown that they are not good stewards of the people's money, and we need one fair federal system. We need to give workers a voice. We need to pay people the benefits that working people can survive on, and we need to make UI available for everyone who's looking for work. Those things need to happen unequivocally. We, through providence of hard work, especially here in the South, in Georgia, and in Pennsylvania, we were able to take the White House. We were able to take a majorities in the U.S. Senate. We're still holding on to the House. So this, who knows what's going to happen in the next election cycle? This is the most friendly Congress that we've had in a long time. If you'll remember, Obama was president, but the Democrats were in control of Congress since 2010. So this is 2009. So this is the time is now. The petition that we have is populardemocracy.org/fixui unemployment insurance. This what we have to understand is I've been talking to workers all day, all week, for the past month, and they understand that being unemployed, people typically look down on them. But something that people saw in this last pandemic is the fact that that crisis can affect anybody. It doesn't matter if you did all the schooling. It doesn't matter if you have decades of experience. It doesn't even matter if you have some high-paying job in Hollywood or whatnot. You can get laid off, and then you have no money, but your bills don't stop. Your rent doesn't stop. You still need to buy food. And when you go and you try to access the system that's supposed to be a safety net, that's supposed to take care of you and your family, supposed to make sure that you can keep going, a system that you paid into, right, by paying taxes, by being a citizen, by being a worker in this country, being a resident, that system was not there for people. And that's completely unacceptable. And we have an opportunity to change that system. President Joe Biden is going to put forward his Build Back Better plan. It's calling for a lot of economic reforms, a lot of transformational policies. They're going to have big dollars behind them. When that reform comes through, when it comes to a vote, we need to make sure that there is massive unemployment reform. Because we can think that, oh, the vaccine's out, the pandemic is this and that, but a lot of the economy has changed. And it's going to take time for people to figure out where they fit in. And beyond even all that, if we're not seeing every 10 years, we're having some sort of massive economic upset that completely leaves millions of people, millions of families just destitute. So we need to fix this unemployment system. We need to fix it now, and we need to fix it by revolutionizing it, not by just kicking the can down the road, and certainly not by collecting taxes to give the businesses from the people, when the people in a state like Florida are already not properly funded, right? And already have ecological devastation, already have rampant poverty. Here in my city, in St. Petersburg, we have the 5 worst failing schools. They need resources, marginalized communities need resources. We have workers across the state. This is one of the worst states for workers in the entire country because there's no protection. We have no Department of Labor in this.
So many things need to get done. And until we do those things, we should be talking about giving money to corporations who frankly, not all of them. There have been some that definitely have been destitute, but there have been a lot that profit has. They should be paying more taxes. Yeah,
the next question cut you off. Thank you guys both for that. Appreciate your insight and just walking us through a little bit more about the pandemic and how it's affecting people. The one thing that I wanted to kind of dig in on with both of you, and whoever can answer this question, but a lot of people, even myself included, a few years ago, just assume that unemployment is there. They kind of take it for granted that you just assume that anyone who loses their job can go out and apply for unemployment and get benefits, and that will just replace all of their their lost income. But for anyone who lost their job during the pandemic, that that's not exactly how it works. It's not quite that simple. So for either of our panelists, could you tell us a little bit more about how, some specifics of examples of how the system is failing us, or, just kind of some insight into, what are the actual barriers that are preventing people from getting unemployment reform or getting people.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, Kofi, you can take this one first.
Oh, well, there's a lot of things. First off, not everyone in Florida can get unemployment, right? There's people who, our economy has changed a lot, even before the pandemic. You have a lot of work that's like gig workers, a lot of contract workers. they don't necessarily qualify for it. Yet people who have mixed incomes, right? So they might have a part-time job here and then they have a hustle there, but all those people need income, right? So you have those people. You have also people who work in our state, contribute to our economy, but might be working to get their documentation settled, right? In terms of their status in this country. But a lot of them, they take care of us. They feed our families. Like, they deserve to get some sort of reform too. They pay into the system. A lot of them pay billions of dollars in taxes they never collect anything from. So a lot of this is like, there's a lot of reforms that we need to do. Also, a lot of states, I haven't seen before, but a lot of states are reinstating the qualification where you have to be looking for work consistently, right? And obviously, in an economy that's still having higher than normal unemployment, there's still a lot of jobs have not come back. To tell people that they have to be looking for work to get unemployment, that's just not okay, right? We don't have a compassionate system. We have a system that seeks to actively exclude people as if that helps you be productive. Just beating someone down, especially when they're on their knees, does not help them be productive. I think a lot of atrocities across this world have taught us that, and unfortunately, the leadership in Tallahassee and too many states across America don't seem to understand that.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add. I've had the fortunate opportunity to work with Kofi on a few campaigns, and he is exactly on the money with that. Just in my day job, away from the state legislature, again working with adjunct faculty. To Kofi's point, many folks don't know, but adjunct professors are considered gig workers, and so they don't qualify for unemployment. And here they are actually being hired more so than full-time professors, because colleges and universities do not have the funding that they need. They don't get adequate funding from the state. So they hire adjunct faculty, these gig employees, at lower rates, and they're more disposable. And so they pay into the system that they can't even get money. They can't even get money out of. And so it's very, very, very unfortunate. And the only reason that some of them were able to claim unemployment is because the federal government stepped in during this pandemic. And it clearly shows that Florida does, in fact, have a very broken system, to Kofi's point. And so those are things that those are the type of calls and emails that my office receives every day. Again, it's something that I'm working on as a state rep and working with Florida Public Services Union on as well.
Yeah, I think the adjunct professors is a great example. That's so unfortunate to see people who are working really hard, who are really important, for students' lives and for just the overall functioning of our society. We need people that are learning, and to see them, not being treated the same as as other employees is really unfortunate. Why is it? What do you? And again, this question is for either of you. Why do you think that the unemployment system is not a priority? Why is it, if we know that the servers weren't working, if we know that they're, we can address all these issues, we know that certain gig workers aren't being included. Like, why does the majority in the legislature choose not to fix it?
I'll take that, because we don't make donations to them. I mean, like, it's easy as that, right? So if you look at people who make campaign contributions, which are sometimes big corporations and things like that, you see that they get the perks. Take, for instance, a very large supermarket chain that made donations, and then for a while they had exclusivity rights for giving out the vaccine, the COVID-19 vaccine. I mean, follow the money, right? And so when you follow the money, you also see that working class families and unions have been supporting progressive candidates forever, but now there are policies that are being fast tracked through the chambers to pretty much annihilate unions as we know it. And when unions go, when unions are under attack, working class families are under attack. And people want to keep us so down, so oppressed, because, you know, we're not padding their campaign coffers and we're not making them rich, right? Like the 1% is getting bigger. It's crazy because there were several companies that profited billions of dollars here in the state of Florida, billions of dollars in the state of Florida, and did not pay any money, anything worth, no corporate income taxes, no Florida corporate income taxes. And it's so upsetting because as a small business owner, I literally got a call from the Department of Revenue the other day because I have to pay some taxes, making sure, hey, you know, deadline's coming up, make sure you pay your taxes. And so that's what we're dealing with. So follow the money. And yes, follow the money.
Yeah,
I think
I
that's
remember in 2013, personally, I was on unemployment for a few months, and it wasn't even called unemployment back then. Rick Scott, our current U.S. Senator, former governor, was governor at the time, and he called it reemployment because it's like he said, when we were getting the $600 that was in his own party's president's bill stimulus package, he was saying, oh, if you keep giving people these money, they're never going to go back to work. Like, so he believes that people should work under pain of destitution and starvation. He's not even in poverty. He's not thinking people should work to uplift themselves or to, you know, better themselves. And so that's why, because people like him, frankly, think people are disposable. And at the end of the day, we have to understand that's not okay. We need to make sure people like Rick Scott, you know, that he hears the will of the people, let's just say, when his time comes up to speak.
And I just want to add to what Kofi stated. And I just want to push back on this narrative that I am hearing from small business owners or from businesses and corporations anyway, saying that people, to what Rick Scott was saying, you know, people aren't applying for jobs and all that other stuff because they don't want to work and things like that. It's not that people don't want to work and that they're getting more money because of the federal money that came down. That has nothing to do with it. Workers need to be treated with dignity, with respect. Their safety needs to be number one priority. Why should I jeopardize my life, risk my life when all you care about profits? And so that's something that we need to start pushing back on. When we talk to our friends who own small businesses and things like that, we need to push back on that. And another thing is, you know, the price of goods always goes up and fluctuates, right? You know, but when small businesses, when goods go up, small businesses, they always, you got to pay for those goods, right? And so, or when there's a shortage of something, the price goes up, right? If folks are saying there's a shortage of workers, which is what I'm hearing now, which is what businesses are saying, there's a shortage of workers and we can't get workers, then why don't you raise their pay? People should not be in the business of employing people and having them live in poverty. Like, I have a problem with that. Like, I am a small business owner, but when I pay my workers, I pay them at least $15 an hour, because when I pay my workers, they come to work, they're fed, they're happy to be here because I'm treating them with dignity and respect, and they don't have to worry about how they're going to put food on their table or a roof over their head. And so we really have to start changing the narrative around workers. Like, I hate people that are saying stuff like workers are lazy and they're just sitting back collecting a check. That is not the case. The problem is these companies here don't care about workers and they're putting their lives in danger. And we really need to push back on that.
Yeah, can't agree with enough with what both of you have said, especially, you know, the money. I think you're very right that that's what it comes down to: saving money for businesses, reducing taxes for the state. When we reduce taxes for the state, we also have to reduce the benefits that are going out. If we cut taxes for businesses, there's not as much money to give unemployed people. So, yeah, and I think it's interesting too to talk about the stigma against workers, the stigma against being on unemployment, and thinking about how that plays a role in keeping people held in positions of of poverty, or keeping people out of having power. But with that, I see that we have Maya Brown, who's joined us from People Over Profits. Very glad to have you joining us this evening for our discussion on unemployment and the COVID pandemic. Did you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell those that are watching a little bit more about work that you do and the organization you're?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. So I am Maya Brown with the group People Over Profits, founded by former state representative Sean Shaw, who ran for Attorney General in 2018. And then after his statewide run, did not go home and did not sit idly by on the sidelines, but definitely jumped right on in to continue building this work of putting people over profits, right? The name speaks for itself. How do we make sure that we are putting the hardworking families of Florida first, and making sure that we're centering these folks in policy discussions, organizing, and building a state that works for all of us? And so when the opportunity came to have a conversation about what's going on with the unemployment crisis and making sure that folks have equitable living wages to get through the pandemic and beyond, this was something we wanted to make sure that we were a part of. And we are continuing to hold our legislators accountable as we continue to think through and reimagine what the unemployment system looks like, right, in the state of Florida, and making sure that it works for everyone, right? We've been having a conversation about broadband inaccessibility. How do we make sure that folks who don't have access to the internet can access the unemployment system? How do we make sure that folks who need more wages or need a higher amount of the disbursement because they have a larger family, that makes sense, and that folks can actually afford to pay their bills? So we are making sure that we're centering that, uplifting that, and then also making sure that those resources are going directly to folks in need.
Excellent. Well, you joined us at the perfect time, because we were just talking about how much of a role money plays in influencing our system and influencing who gets payouts through unemployment reform and who doesn't. So we're glad to have you joining us. The next question I wanted to ask for any of the panelists is, we talked a little bit about the issues, the barriers that people have had for getting unemployment or for getting support, but we haven't really talked about the people behind that story. So I wanted to ask the panelists, who are the folks that are are there folks that are being disproportionately affected by the pandemic? Who are the folks that are continuing to to have to continue to run uphill all the time, try and get help, and are getting less help? What folks in our communities are disproportionately having negative impacts from the pandemic?
You are breaking up a little bit. Can you re-say your question, Nick, please?
Yeah, sorry. I don't know why my mic's having issues today. I was just asking what folks in our community are being disproportionately impacted when it comes to unemployment and the coronavirus pandemic.
I mean, for the past year, we've all been stuck in the house, right? And so, as a juxtaposition of the state of Florida and some of the other states, we shut down probably. We had the shortest amount of time that we shut down in comparison to other states. And that really took a toll on small business owners. That took a toll on folks who work in service industry, especially restaurateurs, servers, things like that. And so that doesn't mean that folks still don't have bills to pay, right? Just because these businesses closed down, folks still have to pay their rent, still have to pay their light bill, their water bill. And we have to think about what that looks like for folks who need to access an unemployment system. And so we were dealing with two pandemics at once, right? So for folks who who didn't have access to work, but then also were struggling to get access to the unemployment system. And then I think on top of that, what does that look like specifically for low income communities and people of color, right? Like how are we making sure that there is no disparity in delivering checks to folks who are in communities of color? And we saw kind of over the past year how that was happening, and there was no leadership from our governor there. Like there was no consideration for making sure that we were supporting folks in their time of need. Folks like State Rep Nixon and others really pushed to ensure that we had the moratorium on, the mortgage and the rent, so that folks weren't getting evicted in a crisis that none of us could have thought to prepare for or to be able to really combat. So we are working and to make sure that doesn't continue to happen. But on the other side, right? How are we making sure that when we are thinking about reimagining what this unemployment assistance system look like, that we are making sure we're talking to the folks who are most directly impacted? If we don't know the experiences of those folks who are trying to access the system, how are we going to make it work and make it accessible to the folks who need it most? Like this shouldn't be about the government contractors who have the best and brightest and prettiest PowerPoint when they come to pitch the state of Florida to do this system, but it's about making sure that it works for the people.
Thank you. And does anyone else have any comments about how groups of people that are being left out or groups that are being disproportionately impacted by unemployment and
Yeah, I mean, there was a report, a jobless report, I believe, in December, and it had I believe all of the women that it had, like everyone was like women who was like in the jobless report that lost their job, and of those women, they were all like women of color. So it was like 160,000, I believe. So it's obvious who's being tough hit by what's going on, and that was a lot of that was like hospitality jobs. It was like some CNA jobs, and jobs that are necessary, but jobs that when it comes to having social distancing and all these sorts of things were tough to keep the staffing levels. So I mean, these are the people who have always been economically the most hardest hit. Are lower moderate income people of color, especially like I spoke about also, our brothers and sisters that have their or siblings that have their immigration status, in precarious situations, but they are doing important hard work, contributing to this country, and they deserve to be counted. These are the people who are being most hardest hit, but we also do have people in some of the larger industries, like Hollywood and things like that are being hit as well, which is creating a really interesting dynamic where these people have greater solidarity right now with average working people. And it's something that we need to leverage as a relationship as we go to rebuilding a new economy, because it's those sort of alliances that's going to help us to build a coalition of people that can have conscience and have a spirit of justice for the future.
And speaking of coalitions, do you think that, again, we were talking earlier about how gig workers and other folks are getting left out or, are running into more barriers with the process? Would any of you say that, some of this is intentional, that the system was set up to pit workers against each other, like sort of divide and conquer? Or, why is it that workers struggle so hard to, if we're all struggling from the same issues, why is it so hard for us to stand by, our, people of color, women, and other minorities to actually lift up and, put pressure on.
So I don't know if you know the history of right to work laws. Florida was actually the first state. Texas, it was where it came from, the idea, but Florida, I believe, was the first state to do right to work law, and it was directly done because it was an idea talking to white workers and saying, "Do you want to be in a union of black workers?" It was a racist. It was the gentleman who created it was a segregationist, and yeah, that's nothing new here in the South. It's nothing new in America, but you had similar sort of struggles with white working class in California and the Chinese labor that was coming in to help build the railroads and things like that. So I mean, it's like, yeah, that's been the rule of thumb in this country is pitting groups of people against one another, and everyone's at the bottom fighting for scraps while people at the top are being fat and happy. What we need to do is break that dynamic, and we need to come together, and hopefully after everyone suffered this past year, we can start to do that.
Kofi totally hit the nail on the head again. We should be focused on more important things, but we have politicians and lawmakers that are working on policies to drive wedge issues, and to really start pitting us against one another when we should really be coming together, demanding that there's quality health care so that the Black community and the brown community isn't disproportionately impacted negatively by COVID-19 and having suffering from any other types of pre-existing conditions, right? We should be we should be focusing on ensuring that the public education system isn't gutted and bright futures. However, again, there's these other wedge issues that are playing out to really try to pit us against one another, especially around like our spirituality and our religion and things like that. But we should really be more concerned with the fact that there are people who can't put food on their tables. There are people who can't put a roof over their heads. Some of our kids can't read, and it's because they have parents who are working 2 and 3 jobs and can't necessarily be home during this pandemic. And so they're forcing their kids to be at risk by putting them back into a brick and mortar, as opposed to those who are a little more privileged. And I could say that I was able to work from home and allow my kids to go to school from home as well, and so virtually and things like that. And it is all by design, and unfortunately it has been working, but hopefully with the passing of not with the passing, but hopefully just showing the anti-protest bill being pushed through the House as quickly as it was, right? Now being maneuvered around and put into the appropriations committee, being taken out of a committee, not even having been heard, and it was supposed to die over on the Senate side, but because it's something that they want, right? Like, if we look at this, if we let people know like this is what's happening, and he who makes the rules can really win the game, right? Like, if we illustrate this to people and let them know what's going on here, hopefully folks will not necessarily be hopeless, but it agitates them to get angry and to take action, and not just take action at the ballot box, but take action year round and really holding people accountable. Like, there's so many bad bills that are getting pushed through. Last week I had to push back in regards to a bill in which they want to no longer pay school board employees. I know that sounds great, right? We can use that money to go back into the school system, but if we look at it, it's not a lot of money. And then when you think about it, who actually would be able to run for school board and serve on a school board if they don't get paid? It ain't people. It's not that many people that look like me or come from the neighborhood or come from the same exact background that I have, having been a single mother for 13 years, and you want me to spend numerous hours at workshops and meetings, overseeing a budget away from my child, not like spending pretty much it's a job. It's a part-time job. Actually, it is a full-time job. So that is creating an elitist group of folks who are overseeing our public school system, right? And that is pretty much Xing out people who have the most at stake from being involved in the process. And again, that's by design. And it's so unfortunate. But again, because of organizations like you all, For Our Future, Common Ground Project, and People Over Profits, and Kofi, I forgot the name of the organization, but because of organizations like you all, we have to continue to really elevate the voices of those that are doing the work and elevate what's happening, right? And pushing out that narrative that unfortunately a lot of lawmakers up here in Tallahassee are not in it for the people.
Well, I know we only have a few minutes left, about 10 minutes down. I wanted to save some time for some closing remarks from David. But the last question I kind of wanted to ask all of our speakers is, if I'm sitting at home right now and I'm hurting and I'm being directly affected by unemployment or by the repercussions of unemployment, or if I am somebody who just is really interested and wants to get involved, what is the best thing for us that we can be doing right now to actually put pressure on our elected officials to do something about this?
So this is Kofi. You can definitely you can go to populardemocracy.org/fixui. You can sign our petition. We'll be following up with everyone that signs our petition and getting them involved. We'll be actively working going into the spring and the summer to pass real meaningful change in Congress.
And I'll jump in here quickly too. Folks, if you go to the My Florida House website, you can go in, type in your address, and figure out who your state legislators are, right? That's so super important to know, and call them, right? Like what I like to remind folks is that the folks who are elected to office work for us, right? Like we give them these jobs and we could take these jobs away from them. And so they need to hear from us about what our priorities are on the ground, right? We always kind of laugh about polling, how it's inaccurate and how these folks make decisions that seem to be out of touch. The way they get into touch is by hearing from us, right? So if we're hearing the same things that Rep. Nixon said, they're passing all these bad bills about voter suppression and this anti-protest bill. Let's also make sure that they're prioritizing, if this is important to them, make sure they also prioritize fixing the unemployment system, right? Making sure that they hold the corporation accountable that built the system almost intentionally for it not to work, right? And so they need to hear from us, identify who those folks are, and then if they continue to silence us, to push us out of the process from not making sure that we're heard, another level of accountability is in 2022, right? And so we need to make sure that we are being intentional about who we're sending up to Tallahassee to fight for these issues that are being handled on the state level.
Yes, ditto to everything that Maya and Kofi stated. Go to myfloridahouse.gov, reach out to me. I was trying to pull up the website. Kofi, what's the website for the People's Budget? There's a coalition of organizations that's working on a people's budget here in the state of Florida, letting the legislators and lawmakers know what it is that the type of budget that we want to see passed, right? The type of Florida that we envision that is actually for the people. It's being funded because clearly the budget is being funded by the people, but right now it's not for the people, unfortunately. And so we have a People's Budget Challenge out there. So if you Google the People's Budget Challenge Florida, it'll actually pull it up. I can't think of the website off the top of my head. Kofi, what's the website?
I put it in the chat. It's peoplesbudgetflorida.org.
Okay, peoplesbudgetflorida.org. If you go there, you can join us. Myself, along with over 20 other lawmakers here in the state of Florida, sent a letter to the Department of Revenue in which we wanted to know, like, where is our money going? Where are those tax cuts, that money that should be for public services? Where is it going? We're trying to hold people accountable. And again, we want to reimagine, to vision, re-envision, like, what it is, what type of Florida it is that we want to see, like, and letting the lawmakers know this is where our money, this is how much money we have here in the state of Florida, and this is what you should be using it on. So please join our campaign. We have thousands across the state. We want to get hundreds of thousands and millions to join us to really hold lawmakers accountable to ourselves, to our voices. Because again, we are the people, and like Maya stated earlier, y'all elected me. I have to answer to you all, and I have 120 other folks and 119 other folks on the Florida side, the Florida rep side, and then there's 60 over there on the Senate side that really have to answer to you all. So join us.
Awesome. Yeah, those are great opportunities for folks to get involved. I highly encourage you to visit the People's Budget Florida and sign up to information to visit the Center for Popular Democracy's website and sign up to get updates from them. And just can't emphasize enough the power of a phone call. It's something that doesn't seem like it makes that big of a deal, but our elected officials oftentimes keep track of how many phone calls they get for or against something, and they assume that for every phone call they get, that there's another 100 or 200 or maybe even more people that are thinking that just didn't bother to make a phone call, that didn't take the time to call. So, I guarantee that every single person who was dealing with unemployment picked up the phone and called their representatives and put pressure on them. We would see some more action. So we still got time left. The Florida legislators still meeting. So if you have any time today or tomorrow, make that phone call. Call your state senator, call your state representative, ask them what they're doing for unemployment reform, and please do continue to get involved in the work that Common Ground for Future, the People's Budget, Center for Popular Democracy, all the work that these organizations are doing, because we can only be successful when we have your help. But with that, I'd like to turn it over to David, who's going to talk about a few other things that you can also do right now this evening that would make a huge difference and help push the envelope and make sure that all your workers are uniting, that we are fighting together, and that we are actually seeing progress from our elected officials.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, definitely, of course, really glad to be here and joining with this panel and all the unique work that everyone here is doing to really advance worker protections and uplifting Florida families. Really, of course, this is the launch event for the Workers Week, and there's lots of ways to get involved. Really, people that care about these issues, a lot of times it's kind of a personal question of how do I get involved, or what are some ways that I can make a difference, and really, what we do with organizing is what we push for during big election seasons. It works then, and it still works today, even when we don't have a very immediate election deadline. But these calls to our state representatives are really good ways to make our voices heard. And then, when they do get, hundreds, thousands of calls on particular issues, they do get heard and they'll get listened to. And so really this week, of course, for our future, where we do advocacy a lot of times for unions and a lot of workers' rights issues, we are doing some petitions and doing calls to really build grassroots support on petitions, especially around Senate Bill 84, which affects the state pension program. Also Senate Bill 78, which would really harm workers' right to unionize. And so we are doing phone banks Tuesdays and Thursdays, really around that. A great way to really get involved and to help out and really kind of tip the scale on a lot of these legislative issues. We can also, of course, go to the Common Ground Project and For Future Florida are pairing up on Workers Week Action Center. We have 4 petitions from our coalition partners who have co-hosted this event. It's a click-to-call campaign, directly patch you through to your representatives. Of course, the People's Budget Challenge. We have some toolkits for resources on how to advocate for common sense unemployment reform, minimum wage here in the state. And then, there's an executive report that we want to highlight from the Florida Policy Institute. So those are some really good ways that people can get involved and work with us as a lot of groups that work together to highlight these issues. We're all a part of a big workers' rights and advocacy puzzle, and so working together here is crucial. And really glad to be joined by this panel, and really grateful for the chance that we have to work together on this. And I really have a great deal of faith that we'll be able to see some positive pushes here in the last half of the legislative session. So those are some great ways. Hopefully y'all get to see some of those links in the chat or see them on our pages if you've been watching and would like to learn more.
Well, thank you again, Representative Nixon, for all of your hard work fighting for us and the people of your district. We are so grateful to have had your time here today and to have you representing us. And, someone in Tallahassee that we can know and we trust is invaluable. So thank you so much for your work. And Kofi as well, thank you so much for being here, for continuing to push hard for workers to organize people in the community and to help all of us make sure that our voices are being heard, because I know that there are more of us out there than there are against us. It's really about every single person who cares about unemployment reform, who cares about economic fairness, who cares about workers, that we're all working together and that we have a uniform message to Tallahassee that there's got to be more done to help our workers and keep our families safe. So thank you both. And thank you, David, as well, for all the work that you all do helping workers in Florida. And with that, I hope you all have a great evening. Thank you all so much for joining us.
Bye. Thank you.